Hello, everybody. Welcome to the week 4 go-to training. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week. I wanted to kind of go over some of the material that we had talked about last week in class. Starting here with anatomy of emotion. So kind of the process that you know emotions go through. We have events. Things happen in life. That's the A section. There's an event. We then move on to our beliefs about that. And it's interesting, like the beliefs or our perception of an event. Really, that's what shapes how we feel. That's essentially is our story that we tell ourselves about a situation. It's probably one of the strongest stories is the one that we tell ourselves. A lot of times we'll create a story in our head about an exchange we had, where, I said something to somebody, they were short back with me, and then I usually spin a story that involves me and how that person doesn't like me, or that, I did something to upset them. But usually what happens is it's a story that I create and I make it centered around myself because as humans, we're kind of drawn to do that. Can anyone ever, has anyone had an experience where you didn't really understand why a situation maybe didn't go well, but you assumed then that it may have had something to do with you, or you wondered, oh, what did I do to upset that person? Feel free to jump in the text box. If anyone has anything that they want to share, you can raise your hand and I'll be happy to call on people. Is anyone hearing me? I can't tell based on the text box. Okay, well, point of the story. The stories that we tell ourselves, that's really where kind of everything comes from. What I've had to take to doing, and what I would encourage other people to do, is just take exchanges for what they are, take encounters for what they are. I can make up a really empowering story, or a story that really has me not feel empowered. And essentially my beliefs about the situation, or what I think, that leads into the consequences, or where I go with it, what I do. When I was a kid, my mom would tell me a lot. She'd say, "Hey, John, whenever I was upset with somebody, you never know what that person's going through." Whenever I'd complain to her, and that's kind of an interesting way to look at life, and that's not an excuse for people to be jerks, but we never know what's happening in somebody else's world, what's going on with them. So kind of we have to just let it go. Assume that whatever's happening is happening because of something else, unless you knowingly did something terrible to a person, in which case it might be your fault that they're not happy with you. But that belief section is really, that's where we have kind of power in the emotional storytelling part of our lives. So kind of just something to think about. Kind of throughout the reading, you kind of would have gone through that. The challenge, the absolutes is definitely a pretty interesting way. The always never, never say never is one of those things that you hear a lot. Challenging the negatives, another thing. If we maybe get an idea in our head about, we're under the impression that right, somebody doesn't like us, all of those things. I would say it's definitely worth challenging some of the negative ideas that we tell ourselves. We'll get an idea in our head, we'll believe something negative about ourselves, and that's something to kind of look at and say, hey, are these things really true? Or maybe if we have an idea about ourselves and it's negative, maybe it's something that's worth reviewing. as far as, reviewing our emotions, or our positive emotions, especially looking at those and dwelling on the positive. Definitely a good way to, kind of look at situations. Taking a rational outlook, also one of the things that, I know for me, I can get myself off pretty far off track, as far as, an idea that I have about, a situation or something about my life. And I have to take a minute and say, hey, is this stuff all happening in reality? Is this something that, is it reasonable for me to believe the ideas that I have in my head? So, um, it's worth kind of taking it out of context and looking at it kind of from a third person, maybe even getting somebody else involved in, a situation. There's some examples of faulty thinking, or kind of ideas that we might get ourselves caught up in. Things that we've gone over in some of the readings. Interesting kind of ideas. The ideas that we get about ourselves, and whatnot. So I would definitely encourage people to, to take a minute and kind of maybe disarm the faulty thinking. It's easy to fall into an idea about ourselves or an idea about other people. So yeah, just definitely something to kind of look at. Can anyone think of maybe faulty thinking that they've fallen victim to or that they have seen in their own life? Feel free to jump in the text box. Or if you want to raise your hand, I'd be happy to call on people. Oh, okay. Tavia, go ahead. I unmuted you. Hello? Oh, looks like Tavia does not have a microphone. All right. Well, we can come back to it. I wanted to touch on this again. I know we had talked a little bit about multitasking yesterday. There is a video about it, which was, it's actually in the materials section. It's under multitasking. I'd like you to just take a minute and watch the video. Watch it, come back. It's 2.5 minutes, but I'll come back and we'll all talk about it. But I just want to see, kind of what everyone's thoughts are. If for any reason you can't find it, it's in the materials section. It says multitasking. Yeah, I think everybody's coming back from that. Is everyone able to watch that video? Anyone have any thoughts? Yeah, sure. What are your thoughts on that, on multitasking? How it works, whether or not it leads to, kind of long-term proficiency with something. Anyone, feel free to raise your hand if you want. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting stuff. I think that, what I think is interesting, is being able to develop proficiency, and really being an expert at something. I think that, when you have someone who is an absolute expert at something, they give their full attention to the thing that they're working on. I can think of, most, people in fields that some of you might be going into. I can think of, mix engineers. They might be, controlling a lot going on a soundboard at one in a given time. Um, but they're probably just doing just that. They're getting the one thing done. Definitely texting and driving, not one of the multitasking things I would advise doing. Even voice text. A lot of times someone will maybe talk to me while I'm, my brain is somewhere else, and I answer very slowly, because I have a hard time, and I have a hard time answering them when I'm talking to them. Um, because my mind's elsewhere and I'm trying to do two things at once, and I can't really focus on those two things at the same time. So, I'm kind of going back and forth between processing the question and the answer that the person has asked me. Yeah, Taylor says she can't talk and type at the same time. My wife can do that, and it blows my mind. She can have a conversation with you and type something completely different at the same time. Blows my mind. Don't know how it works. It's very impressive to see her do it. But right, that's not a skill I have. I'm okay with that. I have other skills, so definitely something to think about. So kind of right, the switching attention, that's one of the big things. And our ideas, the reason why sometimes we end up doing both ideas slower, is because of the bottlenecking. We just can't get them both to come out and to occur at the same time. So we're going to end up being less proficient with both of them. So just something to think about. Moving forward. If we can stop, focus, give our full attention to one thing, we can probably do a better job at it and end up getting it done a lot faster than if we are floating back and forth between two things. So just something to kind of keep kicking around, to think about as you move forward in your degrees. Mindfulness. I have one more video. It's called Mindfulness. It's in the materials section again. I just want to get everyone to watch it before we move on in this section. So I'm going to mute myself and start the video. So if everyone could go along with me, that'd be great. Alrighty, I think everybody's coming back from that video. I really hope you enjoyed that. That video, I found it recently and I like it a lot. Um, I would have wished, or I think that it would have been useful for me to have kind of started practicing mindfulness earlier on in my life. I can remember a time, when I was in college. I may have been in grad school, I don't remember, but I was in college and I didn't especially like one of my professors. And, I remember them giving me a paper back and I didn't like my grade and I disagreed with it. And, I was just sitting fuming at my desk. To the point, like, I had to remove myself. I had to go out of class and take a walk and just walk around. And, I was pretty frustrated. And I think that, I probably would have been, in a lot better shape if I had kind of taken some meditative steps to kind of relax and just, acknowledge, hey, here's what I can actually do about this situation. Um, and, and go that way. So, I think it's definitely worth, worth looking at, um, mindfulness, checking it out, and moving forward with that. So, meditation comes up throughout this course. I think it's probably something that's worth, even if it's, 5-minute meditation, just giving yourself some time to kind of step back from the world. We're kind of overly stimulated as it is. Teo says people with ADHD have huge issues with mindfulness. I can imagine that could be really tough, especially kind of jumping from one thing to the next. I don't have experience with that, so I can't say yes or no. But yeah, no, that I can imagine that could be a really difficult situation to be in. Some of the things about mindfulness is being in the moment, really just taking a step, away from the distractions, from everything else that's going on. Um, you know, Self-reflective statements. So kind of, here's how I feel, here's what's going on with me, here's what's occurring for me, and appreciating it. It's very easy to get caught up in, oh, I have this thing to do in an hour and I've got to pay these bills and I have, this date later on, or whatever it is. But, just taking a step out of it all and away from the distractions and giving yourself time to, really be aware of, what's going on with you, how you're feeling, how everything is occurring for you. So, I think it's a practice that's worth looking into. I'd encourage everybody to kind of do that. I think that you'll probably find that you can be in a better place at the end of it. So, just definitely something to look forward to. So, practicing mindfulness ideally will help you avoid multitasking and develop awareness of your emotions. As you practice it more and more, it becomes a habit. And like it says, it takes practice. So, think about these things, stop, take a breath. If it's just, if starting mindfulness is just stopping, pause when you're agitated, just pause, take a breath. That's a step in the right direction. And if that leads into more meditative practices, that's great. If it just keeps you from, saying the first thing that's on your head when you get angry, that's great too. It kind of, it can be as much or as little as you want it to be. But I think that it's really important that, it's something that we kind of pick up and attempt to use to the best of our ability. Does anyone have any questions about this specifically? And after that, we'll go on to questions about other things. You think the Hulk needs this? Yeah, Days, you are 100% correct. I think there's some times when kind of you. I haven't seen a Hulk movie in a while, but I feel like there's been times in those movies where he tries to calm himself down a little bit on his way to hulking out. Yes. Anyone have any questions about other stuff, the projects, work for this week? Does anyone have any questions about any of that stuff? Anyone at all? Is everyone pretty excited for, nope, okay, yeah, okay. Is everyone pretty excited for, to move on to your next class? Nervous? Okay. Very excited? Awesome. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, you have math. Okay, sure. Math is, it's not psychology of play. I'm curious how good your final essay needs to be. Are you asking how good your final essay needs to be? Is that the question? Very good. And you're the best of your ability? I'm not quite sure what you mean by how good does it need to be. It needs to be great. I would recommend writing an excellent essay. Some people don't like math. Yep, that is a fact. How long does your... Now, which final essay are you talking about? The group project. The group project, you need to answer the questions. So for that, I believe there's... I'll pull it up. I believe there's 7 questions, 6 or 7. Yeah, 7 questions in step 1. I think that, answer the questions thoroughly. Each one could be, a paragraph. For each number. So it could be 7 paragraphs. That would not be, crazy, but that's between you and your whole team. So, I can't think of too many teams and some teams have smaller numbers, but I think everyone, should be able to write a paragraph, each and be able to come up with a good amount of information. You hate writing essays? Well, welcome to college. You're going to write a lot of essays. I didn't like writing essays when I was at the beginning of college, and by the end of it, I got very good and very efficient at writing them. So I don't know that I enjoyed it anymore, but I got better at it. So that's the dream space assignment. Again, your team research for this week is that assignment. Make sure that you complete it. And just for everybody, I'm going to mention it tomorrow in class, but our Friday class is at 11 a.m. I don't know that. I think everyone should know that, but I am not 100%, so I thought I would remind everyone on the 26th, 11 a.m. Just a heads up. Something to remember. It's the only day that it's different this month. Oh, okay. Creative presentation is at 9 that day. Okay, wonderful. Then you all will be in the right place and hanging out, so that's convenient. We do not have class this weekend is the schedule. We have class Friday. Friday is our last day. Yep. So that's cool. I don't know if that's it says and then like, oh, okay, you're sad. There we go. Got it. Well, you can always not on this weekend, but you can always come over and hang out in the old psychology of play department over in building 4D, where we have lots of fun. So does anyone else have any questions? Oh, hang on. Everyone types all at once. Give me a minute. You should get your class scheduled for next month. I believe it comes out tonight, Wednesday night usually. The question, can you do the dream space assignment by yourself if you're not the leader of your group? Yeah, as long as I would say don't leave your group hanging and not participate with them. If you feel like you want to answer all those questions on your own, by all means you can. But yeah, I don't know if creative presentation has class on Saturday. You would need to ask your creative presentation teacher about that. Final grades post Tuesday of week 2. So next month, not the first Tuesday, but the second Tuesday, everything will post online. So it looks like March the 8th. Oh, okay. I follow what you're saying, Days. If you haven't heard back from them, I would just touch base with them again. If you can, just try and make sure you're staying in contact with them about meetup times. But I would reach out again to see if you can. When will the collaborations be graded for group members? I believe that you should probably have them. I believe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then Friday. Your GPA will appear again Tuesday of week 2. So the 8th is the first day that grades will fully be processed out of here, and you'll be able to see your GPA. Your iCal shows there's class for Saturday. I would. I'm not planning on being in class. I will double check. I'll let you know tomorrow. My calendar shows there's only a class on the 25th and the 26th, but I'll be happy to look into that and let you all know. But I'm tentatively planning on Friday being our last day. Oh, it's the TBA lecture, so which I believe is your integrative learning, which it gets scheduled by a computer, so it's kind of it doesn't really move in a way that we want it to when we change things around. So that might be why that's still on there. Does anyone else have any questions? If you don't, you're free to go. If you do, feel free to hang out. I'll be happy to answer questions. Whatever you need. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. It was good to have everybody for the final go-to training. You're most welcome. How long until the recorded session of this comes out? You're all very welcome. I will be posting this as soon as I get done with questions. I will close it and export it. Don't forget my pub sub order. Yep, definitely. Group assignment should be done Thursday or Friday. Yep.